this Monday, September 12th. Before we convene the meeting, I would like to ask for a moment of silence to honor those who fell during September 11th, and also to honor our police officers and public service, our fire officers, and those in EMS. So if you'll just observe a moment of silence, and then we'll then call the roll. Thank you. This time I'd like to ask the clerk if she'll please call the roll.
Councilmember Knight.
Here.
Blackwell. Joyner.
Here.
T.J. Walker.
Here.
Daltrich.
Here.
Harris.
Here.
Javaris Walker.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. With that said, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? I know of one, and that is to recognize Tommy Harris and his retirement, and we'll make that, is there an item number, would you like to make that, Councilman Joyner? As early as possible. So if it pleases everybody, we'll make that right before the petitions received from the public. We'll make that 5A. Are there other additions or deletions that we should consider?
Wanted to delete number, the last item that has to do with closed session for personnel, and instead make that closed session for property acquisition and economic development.
Okay, so we're going to change the purpose of the closed session to property acquisition, economic development, rather than personnel. Any other additions and or deletions? Hearing none, I do need a motion to change the agenda as we've requested here. Is there a motion? Motion made by Councilman Joyner. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Harris. Hearing no discussion, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. So this time, I would like to, item number 4 is the regular scheduled committee of the whole meeting, which was held on July 11th of 2022. Requested action is that we approve the minutes as they are written. Is there a motion? Motion made by Councilman Joyner. Is there a second? Second by Councilman T.J. Walker. Is there a need for discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. That brings us to item number 5. So at this time, I'll turn the meeting over to our city manager, Peter F. Varney, for the community update.
Just to update people on the solid waste collection, last week we were not able to collect any containerized yard waste at all. We had 6 members of our work crews out with COVID, and we also had a number of equipment difficulties, equipment being in the shop. We did collect all garbage and recyclables last week. This week we have our yard waste collection crews back on staff, and we also have some of the equipment is back available to work. So we expect to be able to collect garbage, recyclables, and containerized yard waste. And in addition to that, we'll have 2 of our grab-alls working on bulky waste collection. So we should be able to make some headway with that. The only second thing to talk about is that we've established a public engagement meeting schedule for the American Rescue Plan funding, looking for ideas on how to use those. Looking for ideas on how to use those funds. And so we have a series of meetings scheduled. The first one begins on Wednesday this week, and the meeting would be held at the Booker T Theater. And this would be a citywide meeting for the use of those funds. And a third thing and last thing to talk about is that we celebrate the annual end of summertime, and we'll be doing that this coming Saturday at the Martin Luther King Jr. Park with a concert there by EU Band and featuring Sugar Bear. So that would take place from 4 o'clock till 8 o'clock on Saturday the 17th.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Varney. Are there any questions or, yes, comments for Councilman Knight?
Yes, some of the citizens was asking for to check and see if the survey could be extended. I think something, online wasn't exactly right with the survey.
Oh, to extend the survey on the ARP? Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So it is until, end of October? End of October, yes, sir. Thank you.
So just to clarify for everybody, that the survey will end at the end of October as it relates to the ARP funds and suggestions from the community. Any other questions, comments? Yes, sir, Councilman Joyner.
Let me thank everyone, Mayor and City Council, for supporting the Edgecombe County Commission and School Board on the demerger. Mayor Pro Tem Walker and myself have served on that committee, and knowing that going forward that we will continue to serve there and encourage our city to not to be absent when it comes to how we look at the education of our students in Rocky Mount, both National and Edgecombe. Thank you for your support.
Thank you.
One comment.
Yes, sir, Councilman Knight.
Yes, I just want to make sure that the citizens understand that it was not anything that we pushed. So I just want to give a shout out and congratulations to Mr. Robert Davis for working behind the scene and on the scene trying to get this legislation passed to demerge our school system. And it seems like it's going to happen. And again, Councilman Joyner said we support that.
Okay. Hearing no other comments, so I'd like to ask Dr. Tommy Harris, please come forward. This is our opportunity to honor and recognize you on the occasion of your retirement from Inglewood OBGYN Associates. And so on behalf of the council and myself, I want to wish you the sincere best wishes in your retirement. Okay, at this point, this brings us to petitions to be received from the public. And you'd think I'd have this memorized by now, but I don't. The public petitions portion of the city council meeting is an opportunity for public comment, and the city council appreciates your attendance and thanks you for expressing your views and opinions. City council values all citizen input. This is an opportunity to raise a question or present a request to the council. However, in most cases, council members will not respond to public comments, but may refer the matter to the city manager or staff for follow-up. Time will be monitored in order to give everyone an opportunity to speak, and speakers will have 3 minutes. Please be aware that sign-in sheets must be presented to the security officer prior to the opening of the city council meeting, and if an organized group is present to speak on a common issue, Please designate one person to present the group's concerns. If your comments are in regard to an item that is subject to a public hearing, please wait until that item is introduced to speak. Time will also be monitored. If your comments are in regard to an evidentiary hearing, additional time may be granted. The City Council's request that you please adhere to the following guidelines. Complete a sign-in sheet. Address comments to the council as a whole and not to individual council members or city staff. Speak from the podium in a civil, non-argumentative, and respectful manner. And personal attacks which have the potential to disrupt the meeting will not be tolerated, and you will be asked to sit down or removed from the meeting. Please keep comments to 3 minutes. At this time, I'd like to ask Mr. Cornelius Dancy to the podium.
Good evening.
Yes, sir.
It is me. I got hair. I ain't been here in a long time. I usually wear my head bald, so you see
We've
how
missed
gray
you.
it is. Again, good evening. I'm Camillus Butch Dancer II. And Reverend Joyner and Reverend Andre Knight, they done stole my glory, so, but I'm still gonna go on with it. I've been sitting here for 2 hours at the committee to hold me. I stand before you today to say thank you for supporting the Nash Edgecombe Public Schools Demerger. I have videoed basically all the public meetings, even ones that nobody else videoed, and have them on my website and YouTube, so anybody would like to see those. But it's sad that the merger is what it is. However, we all know that Nash County Commissioner Chair Robbie Davis and the commissioners have been pushing for it. I like what Edgecombe County Commissioner Chair Leonard Wiggins said. This is a bad piece of legislation, but it's good for Edgecombe County, and I stand with him. So thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. I'd like to ask Ms. Nathlin O'Ree to the podium.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and those present.
Good evening.
That's my boyfriend.
Well, if you need to take it, I can call you later.
Well, on that note, I'm just here, and I am so happy. I went to the biking classic this weekend, and it rained all it could rain, and I ate all I could eat, and people were so happy, and I was so happy to see so many the city councilmen around it, especially the one on the bicycle. He was so handsome. And I just thank you all for the security and the safety and the well organization that you presented for the Down East Biking Classic. It was really a breath of fresh air for our city, and it's wonderful to know that good things are still happening in Rocky Mount. And I also want to encourage you to continue to maintain the positive image that we have for our city. And right about now, I'm jealous because there's a beautiful parking lot across the street. It is so beautiful. And then the street running up and down, it's got a few holes in it. And so I believe that our city deserves a little facelift if we can. So our new emergency vehicles, will not, our police cars will not be damaged, bumping up and down over those bumps. And that's the only thing I could I'm not complaining, I'm just making an observation. So thank you all for all the wonderful things that you do, and thank you for trying to work together. It's getting better, and God bless you.
Thank you. I'd like to invite Al Bullard to the podium.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Al Bullard, and I live at 3503 Chelsea Drive in Rocky Mount. I come to you with an idea and things that are on my mind, but I also have a house at Atlantic Beach that I split time between Rocky Mount and Atlantic Beach. The town of Atlantic Beach 3 years ago decided to contract their waste. And they go from 12,000 folks to April, and in April they go to 50,000 folks from April until Labor Day, and then so forth. But they pick up my trash 2 times a week, doing that 50,000, and then 1 time a week, and have no problem. I pay my trash bill, and it's $14 a month. The town of Morehead City has done the same, and then there's no hiccups. They've contracted out with GCF, which used to be Waste Industries, and they got a lot of equipment. They got equipment from here to wherever, and if something breaks down, they move it over there. So one of the things I'd like for y'all to do is consider maybe going to look at Atlantic Beach and Morehead City and look at the contracting out the waste. So the next thing I have on my mind is the beggars. My wife has been intimidated by the beggars on the streets. And I went to Wilson today. I rode around Wilson, I saw no beggars. I went to Greenville today and rode around, I saw no beggars. And I see no beggars at Atlantic Beach and Morehead City. We need to do something. Morehead has a place for folks that don't have anywhere to go. They have a home over there. They feed them, clothe them, put them to work, and it just looks bad when you drive into Rocky Mount and especially a female feels intimidated, especially at the corner of Winston and 64. That guy intimidates folks, walks up to the car. So the women just don't feel comfortable with that, and I think it's something that maybe that we need to come up with and do away with the beggars on the streets. It just looks so bad. Again, I thank you for the job you're doing, and I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to invite David Hill to the podium.
Good evening, gentlemen. As you heard, my name is David Hill. I relocated from Baltimore back in 2011 to the great city of Rocky Mount. However, I have some very concern about Short Spoon Circle. I don't know if you've heard of it or not, and I'm sure you have. Our new city councilor, he's well aware of it, but I decided to come myself to bring the complaint to you guys. I live at 656. The problem we have at 620 Short Spoon Circle. It's a residential home, seemed to be about 3,000 square feet. It was empty for a long period of time. Now we have a gentleman in there, or gentlemen or someone in there, that have turned it into a commercial auto repair shop. And it really, not only does it look bad, if you think the beggars look bad, you should look at 620 Short Spoon Circle. I have complained. Many of the residents on that street have also complained. I brought some with me tonight also. And I would just like for something to be done. About 5 Wednesdays ago, I came in. There was cars all over the place. There was 2 vehicles blocking the street on one side. I had to go around them and meet traffic. I went home and I called the Rocky Mount Police Department. Young lady answered, and I told her the problem. She said, okay, we'll send somebody out there. They did. I saw a police car come. He came past 620, made a left turn and went up to not Short Spoon. He was on Short Spoon. He went up Sand Trap. He parked on Sand Trap for about 15 minutes. He left. I said, well, I know he put a ticket on those vehicles. I went right behind him, nothing done. I am really frustrated. I came here because I love this small town, and I'm a taxpayer. And I know that something can be done. There should never be a commercial business handled in a residential city. It should never happen. And I'm coming pleading to you all to do something. Please do something about this gentleman or gentleman. There's about 8, 10 cars there, just as I left the house today. There's an engine out there in the front yard. There's oil running down the driveway, and it really needs to be looked at. I did speak to Mr. Kelly before he retired. I don't know what he did about it, but there was many other complaints that went in. I don't know what's going to happen, but I would like for you all to do something. I love Rocky Mount. I don't want to move. I retired and came here for the quiet life. Leaving Baltimore, and y'all know, you don't know it, but I'm sure you've heard Baltimore is not as good as it used to be. But I love Rocky Mount. Please, gentlemen, help us out. We want this to be a great city where everybody will come, visit, and live. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir. Councilman Daughtry?
Mr. Manager, could you look into Mr. Hill's concern? Because I know I've brought this complaint about other parts of the city, and things are not, I don't know what the code is. I do agree in a residential zone, we should not have business in there, and it's a concern across the board, I think. And I know there's some issues that you're working on, I brought to your attention, and that we're working on. I'd like to see it come to committee as a whole. And I also think that it just needs to be addressed because these are taxpayer citizens, everybody, and they have a right to live in a neighborhood that's not inundated with business. And so I support looking into it and doing whatever we can legally do to eliminate those businesses operating out of a residential zone.
I'll tell you what I know about it, and there's more to know, but we've received complaints about 620 Short Spoon Circle for weeks from the neighbors, as Mr. Hill said, from the neighbors all around that address, about cars being parked in the yard and in the driveway and in the street, and in various stages of repair. The owner apparently operates a wrecker service and has a piece of property that he apparently owns on Tanner Road, where when he picks up cars on the wrecker rotation list, will deliver those to that site, and then apparently will bring cars from that site to his home to make repairs on those. We've responded a number of times with community code inspectors, thinking that they may be abandoned vehicles, unlicensed and uninsured and maybe inoperable. But it turns out that they are licensed, that he owns the vehicles, and the vehicles are operable. So the community code has not been effective. The second thing we have done is try to look at the zoning ordinance and have issued civil penalties, imposed civil penalties on the owner for those infractions of the zoning ordinance, operating a business in a residential zone, and that has been ineffective. What we've done so far, the next step with that though would be to file action for the collection of those civil penalties to see if that will result in a change in behavior. So that's the next step. That's what's taken place, and where I think we're going to be going with that.
Thank you, Mr. Varney. Councilman Harris.
Manager Varney, perhaps this is a time that we really need to take a hard look at our community code. I think it's been quite a number of years since it's been updated, and I think there are other issues that we have heard from constituents, and if we can somehow toughen the community code, maybe we can prevent from some of these incidents from happening.
Thank you, Mr. Harris.
Plan to bring an update of the community code, updated ordinance to the council at the next committee of the whole meeting, which I think is October the 10th or thereabouts. In this case, the community code has not been effective, and really think it's more of a zoning ordinance violation than community code. But we'll be looking at the code.
This time I'll recognize Councilman Knight, and then I'll recognize Councilman Jabbaris Walker. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yes, I just want to thank Mr. Hill for the courage to come down, because a lot of citizens wouldn't come down in a public forum to make that complaint. I just want to go on record that we have numbers of auto mechanic shops in people's backyard and front yards. They have been reported repeatedly, and we go through this cycle with community code, and then it goes through, I don't know if those have had any civil penalties or not, but they all need to be treated the same in all of the neighborhoods, because it's a nuisance to those who are living in the neighborhoods. they have to put up with it. You have them in, one in Meadowbrook, one in the Oakwood area, Edgemont area, and just in various neighborhoods that we have constantly complained about. And I also think that community code need to be mirrored with our public works, with sanitation, because I think they need to be working hand in hand, because a lot of times I think community codes see things that should be reported to the sanitation department. They need to report things such as trash and stuff that continue to sit on the curbs, and they need to empty lots. So I think some communication needs to be shared among those departments, and maybe just look at the entire structure and how it's being structured and how it's been governed within our city. And so again, I just appreciate you all coming out to make this known to us on tonight.
Thank you, Councilman Knight. Did I get that wrong? Okay. Hearing no other comment, what I'll do is I'll invite Charles Robertson to the podium.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Much respect to all the recipients of the Housing Incentive Grant, because I know what it takes. I respect y'all like I do the firefighters. When others run out, y'all run in. And I want y'all to know, don't let anyone assassinate your character, because I see you, and so do the people in these deprived neighborhoods that you're helping. Don't believe the hype that money is just raining down like rain from the sky. Ms. McGee, who leads the Community Development Department, is a brilliant lady. Her staff, Ms. Brown, Ms. Silva, John Perry, and others, they're like forensic auditors and inspectors. They check my bank account. They check council checks. They visit my work site on numerous occasions. They check inside, outside, upside, downside. They hit you from every angle before they release the funds. In the Senior Matters Village in Southeast Rocky Mount, the city is investing $25,000 per apartment. It doesn't take Warren Buffett to know that that's a great investment. Factor in on your return, increase property taxes, 9 new utility accounts, the social and people capital. Prior to our ownership of these apartments, there was a cesspool for crime. Check the police report, pull them. Now we're turning them into affordable apartments for seniors. Our impact has been inspired investments. I have a friend that drove in from New York today that's invested alongside me on Branch Street. A block from where we are investing, another friend has brought a house that's been off the tax roll for over a decade. She invested $100,000 in that house. If any of y'all council members want to take a walk with me and see what's going on over there, I welcome you. If you want to see some real people, whoever's listening, you can go on the West Rocky Facebook page and see some testimony videos from real people. That's West Rocky Facebook page. I want to thank Councilmember Knight, Councilmember Joyner. They was there since day one supporting this project. We need to support more developers that have 10 toes down in these blighted communities. We have 14 impoverished neighborhoods in the city that needs a lot of love. We need to put more money in the housing incentive program. Thank you, and thank you for supporting Southeast Rocky Mount and all the developers in this city.
Thank you. I'd like to invite Linwood Williams to the podium.
Mr. Mayor, Honorable City Council, thank you for giving me another opportunity to come before you and to address you with some concerns that some of the citizens from our community have. Contrary to what a lot of people think, some of the most beautiful communities in eastern North Carolina are right here in Rocky Mount. It's real easy to pick up a paper and see something that might not speak to that, but it is true. In Edgecombe County, you have the beautiful Cloverdale community, the historic Lincoln Park community. These are beautiful communities. And I don't know if you've traveled down Ravenwood Drive lately and seen the development there, I remember what that looked like before those apartments were refurbished, and it's a beautiful area now. On the Nash County side, you've got West Haven, and then northern Rocky Mount, you have the beautiful Belmont community, and then there is the North Green Village community, which is one of the oldest of these communities I just mentioned. And in that community, there is a golf course that runs a risk of degrading property value there in its current condition. We, the citizens of the North Green Village Association, we have some of them here now. Could I ask you all to please stand from North Green Village Association? Thank you. We believe that that area is a diamond in the rough. We believe that it can be a very beneficial piece of property there that the entire city could learn from or could benefit from. And we would like for you to be just as vigilant in maintaining healthy communities as we are in building them up. And Lord knows we need to do a better job with supporting communities. But we would like to ask you to please consider that as you move forward, the things that could benefit that community there. We believe the golf course would be a very valuable piece of property. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to invite Adrian Copeland to the podium.
Hi, I'm here to talk about item 14, which was the 719 to 727 Brent Street, and is what Charles Robertson was talking about, the Seniors Matter project. I just want to piggyback off of what he said. He did say you guys are checking his bank accounts and, you know, dotting every I and crossing every T, and that's really, really good. So what I'm bringing to your attention is a little bit more of that needs to be done, because I don't want to see anybody in any kind of trouble. So first off, I rode by it today, and it's gorgeous. I mean, it's great. It's doing a great thing for that neighborhood. But what I noticed is a lot of the things on this list that it's asking for in the project sources have been done already. Rough ends, looks like there's some HVAC units already out there. There's some plumbing in there. The security fence is already up. And what I'll draw your attention to is on the contract is about to be signed or voted on tonight is attachment A, number 5, in compliance. The second line says expenses incurred on or before the signing date of this agreement are not eligible for reimbursement. So you can't really reimburse him for something that he's already been done. So if you're gonna sign this contract or execute it, maybe you ought to fix that, because let's not do anything illegal. Also, speaking of things and doing them right, the scope of this project has changed. Generally, when you guys give out these grants, you have a level where you approve the awarding of the grant, and then later you vote to properly execute the agreement between the parties. Well, the last time you approved this agreement, the terms were not as the same as they are tonight. You had approved an award amount of $175,000 with a total budget of $821,990, and those numbers are significantly different. So I'm not really sure how you can vote tonight on something that you haven't technically approved. So you need to just make sure you're dotting your I's and crossing your T's. Thanks.
Thank you. I'd like to invite Ms. Mari Menges to the podium.
Good evening. I would like somebody, and maybe it's Mr. Varney, be able to tell me how the city goes about checking grass that needs to be cut. Specifically, I go to Trinity Lutheran Church, and we have some space, and we have this big grove of trees or bushes or something. You can't even see over in that section. Our maintenance people decided that it needed to be reseeded or whatever, and they weren't cutting it. Well, you cannot see that even from the parking lot, but we got a nasty, and I think y'all need to change that letter, that we need to cut it, or the city will cut it for us and charge us. Well, number one, we don't have a whole lot of people going to that church, and a bunch of us are old people. So the people that are there that are trying to take care of that, they came up to me because they know I'm kind of a big mouth, and I'll come up and ask, why are y'all gonna pick on a little old chumpy church that you can't even see the grass? Does that bother you so bad, the city? And I am the trash lady from the church, and we do the highway cleanup on Sunset, close to where the new bridge messing around is. And some of that grass needs to be cut. Now, I don't know who owns it, but somebody can see that very easily, and it looks nasty. Number two, you know I hate that old ebony and ivory building. That's a piece of junk. Nothing is happening. Now, somebody needs to talk to somebody on the council who knows the people that own it, since I can't say his name, and get him to clean up that eyesore. I mean, it's just nasty, nasty. And as y'all were checking, and your list is smaller to get a new city manager, which I hate Peter not wanting to stay, but I hope y'all were checking some of his qualifications and his talents, how he works and talks plainly. Sometimes y'all answer questions, I don't know what the hell you're saying. And since we have some new people on the council, would they please be given our little sign sheets that say what our concerns are? Because, you know, y'all never answer anything. Of course, y'all do look like you're looking today, which is, y'all are awake, so that's good. Could y'all give them that sign sheet and maybe they could look into it since, okay, well,
All right.
I'm through. Bye.
Thank you, Ms. Mendez. I do appreciate it. Just for the record, sheets are given to the clerk's office and are available to anybody who wants them. And I recently also received a grass cutting memo from the city of Rocky Mount, and and have promptly cut my grass. So with that, that brings us to item number 7 on the consent agenda. I'm assuming everybody's read it. I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda inclusive of the adoption of ordinance and approval of the temporary street closure and adoption of resolution. Is there a motion? Motion made by Councilman Joyner. Is there a second? Second by Jabaris Walker. Any need for discussion? All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion consent agenda has been approved. Number 8 is a public hearing, and that's relative to the proposed closing of an 18-foot wide alley beside Ebenezer Baptist Church. Requested action is to adopt the ordinance closing the alley, but I'd like to ask staff if you could please come and maybe give us some further color. We'll then open this up for public comment if there's anybody here to speak on it. Has the public already spoken on this yet? Yes. It has, okay, all right. Well, let's wait 1 second. If you don't mind, I'm going to ask staff to give us an update, and then I'll ask for the public.
We had received a petition, I guess about a month ago, 6 weeks ago, from Ebenezer Baptist Church to close an alley, an 18-foot long alley. I don't think we have a map of it, do we? Anyway, West Raleigh Boulevard goes to the rear property line. The church owns property on the east side of the alley, and they own most of the property on the west side. There's also an owner whose name is Steve Ellis, who owns some property on the west side. The alley has some utilities in it. It has a gas line in it that provides gas service, and also has overhead electric utilities that service area lights toward the rear of the property. And so if the process calls for a public hearing on the closing of the alley, if the city council were to agree to close the alley, then the way it would work is the property would divide down the center line of the alley, and half would go to the property owner on the east side, and the other half would go to the property owners on the west side. There'd be also the order that you would consider adopting calls for reservation of easements for those utilities and access to those utilities in the event that they need repair. So that's what's involved with it.
Thank you. Is anybody here from the public to speak on this matter, on the alley closing? Okay, fine. Yes, sir, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council. Thank you so much for considering the closure of the alleyway there between the church and the new acquired land that Ebenezer Baptist Church has recently bought, we realized that it provides easy access. What it does, it divides the property on both sides, and we would like to be able to use it for access, and so we could just have it all in one. I've spoken with Mr. Ellis, who is our neighbor, and we got all the documentation signed on that, and he is in agreement that we could do that. He understands that it's not taking anything away from him, that he will be entitled to half of the property once it's closed. So I thank you so much for considering it.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Is there any other member of the public here to speak on the alley closure next to Ebenezer Baptist Church? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adopt the ordinance closing the alley.
So moved.
Motion made by Councilman T.J. Walker, seconded by Councilman Joyner. Sorry about that. Is there a need for discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. So item number 9, we have several public hearings, but first of all, I need a motion to acknowledge receipt of the planning board minutes of the meeting that was held on August 9th of 2022. Is there a motion? Motion made by Councilman Joyner, seconded by Councilman Daughtridge. If there's a need for discussion, hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. All opposed, like sign. That brings us to a public hearing relative to the following rezoning request recommended for approval and found in compliance with the comprehensive plan by the planning board. The request is made by Sandra J. Tharrington to rezone plus or minus 28.92 acres on Bethlehem Road. Property identification number 906-377-954 from R6 to R6 MFA. Is there a member of staff who wants to come and speak to this project?
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. This request here may look familiar to you. It was rezoned back in March from R10 to R6. The reason for the updated change to R6 MFA is further due diligence by the engineer and property owner discovered most of the southern portion there is wetlands. So the intent here is to rezone to R6 MFA to what essentially it does is would increase the density, but they're just trying to get the density that they were attempting in the first round of rezoning. Of note, through the rest of these rezonings tonight, you're aware in July that we passed neighborhood meeting requirements. These applications came in prior to that issuance, and we also have another notification later this evening. So that's the nature of where it came from, R10 to R6, requesting R6 MFA. Due to site constraints, the property would be undevelopable in the wooded area and a little bit further, about 30 feet out from the area of the wooded and the south end of that development.
And the planning board recommended it for approval. Are there any questions of staff as it relates to this particular project? Yes, sir, Councilman Joyner.
No, what I was trying to clarify there, the city council adopted the meeting requirements in July. These cases were scheduled in July. They did not meet until August. There was not a quorum. So all these applications came in prior to that new rule being passed by city council.
Any other questions? This time I'd like to invite the public to the podium. Please, sir.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Jim Taylor. I live on Old Mill Road, and my property is right behind the parking lot of Emmanuel Holiness Church on that map. My driveway goes right up against the property there that they want to develop, and I am opposed to it. I couldn't go to the earlier meeting because I was sick, and then I came down and I had cancer surgery and couldn't make it. So the reasons that I am against this is multi-family residences usually rent. They're renters. And I hate to use this phrase, but in this day and time, parents don't teach their children to respect other people's property like they did in my generation. And another reason is it'll have extra trash. And I heard earlier in the meeting that there was problems with bulk trash pickups, and that'll bring in rodents. You'll have more crime in the area. The schools will be overcrowded, and if you really go ahead with this, I would like that you would ensure that they would build a substantial privacy fence along the properties along Old Mill Road.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments, Councilman Aldridge?
I'd like for Mr. Deaton to come up and address, this is just a rezoning, but if there were to be a request to put in multifamily, the requirements that are placed, if that were to happen.
The requirements would be essentially reviewed through our development review committee. The other issue about fencing and buffering may come into play in some cases. If we wanted to address a list of potential concerns, I think the best approach would be some mutual agreement from the applicant to do a conditional zoning and set standards or what I would say are commitments that you'd be able to see. Because otherwise, with any case, once rezoned, just has to meet the standards development review. And then depending on the size, may or may not go to the planning board for their approval.
Anybody else? Is any other member of the public here to speak on this item? Who raised his hand? Councilman Joyner. Thank you.
I guess was there any other community concerns?
I know we had, there were initial concerns at the first iteration of the rezoning because of the change of the R10 to the R6. To the east, you'll see, I believe it's the Weathervane subdivisions, R6 MFA, CD. Sometimes you'll place conditions on those for the type of development that you're projecting. Beyond that, if you'll recall, I think a couple of other neighbors said, it's wet, it may flood back there, some other issues, but we would hope that most of those will be addressed through stormwater regulations and engineering review.
Any additional questions of staff? Is there any other member here of the public wishing to speak on this particular matter? Okay, seeing none, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion. I'm sorry. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Thank you.
I apologize. I had to come all the way from the back.
No worries.
Mr. Mayor, council members, my name is Kevin Varnell with Stocks Engineering, and I'm representing the developer and owner here. And again, this is something you've seen in the past, and one of the issues that we found during our due diligence, about a third of the property has wetlands on it. So the goal was not to increase the density or get more homes than was originally approved, really just to try to capture the number that we originally had approved. So the impervious area that we're looking for on site really will not change from what we had originally thought. It's really now we're trying to just shift all the homes out of those wetlands up on the high ground. The wetlands in the back will also help to serve as a buffer for stormwater as well. So coupling the fact that the impervious area really won't change that much, we'll have the wetlands in the back as an additional buffer on top of the city stormwater requirements. There really shouldn't be any issues with stormwater to any adjacent property owners or anything like that. Again, the property to our immediate east is owned R6 MFA as well as us. And the goal here will be individually owned townhomes. So these will not be sold to a group of townhomes to an owner. They'll be individually owned. Can't say that one will try to rent them later, but the plan, the goal here is that there'll be introductory homes for families to move into. They'll actually own the townhome itself from wall to wall. So I'll be happy to answer further questions you have.
Are there any? Councilman Harris?
How many homes will be located on this subject piece of property?
It would be a total guess if I try to tell you. I can give you a guess, but it would be a guess, to be honest. I mean, right now we haven't done any layouts on what we have. We really just found the wetlands in the back and tried to come up with Plan B to try to salvage something out of this property. So again, if I could give you a guess, but it would be a guess.
Well, you stated that you were just going to try to recoup the number of homes originally for the whole piece of property into what's now can be built. And I was just wondering what number you had.
Yeah, and I don't remember. I can go back and look at the original single family. We had a single family layout originally, just like Weather Vane next door. But obviously with the wetlands there, kind of all that got pushed up. So I think the number originally was around 80, and that's really kind of what we're shooting for now.
Any other questions? Are there any other members of the public wishing to speak on this matter? Who did? I'm sorry, Councilman Walker.
Yes,
TJ Walker.
it's directed to the engineer.
Yes, sir.
The opposition we heard tonight, is there any way that you can have any type of communication with the owners there behind you about the barrier that could be placed upon development?
Absolutely. Yeah, I can give him my business card, and he's welcome to call me, and we can certainly sit down and talk with the developer and try to get those two together. We'll have some topsoil through the development that we'll need to get rid of, so berms could potentially be an option on that side as well. So what I'll do is leave him my business card, and he can call me anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Any other member of the public here to speak on this matter? This time I'll entertain a motion to adopt the ordinance as recommended for rezoning. Is there a motion?
So
So
moved.
move.
Motion made by Councilman TJ Walker, seconded by Councilman Harris. Is there a need for further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. All opposed, like sign. Ordinance carries. That brings us to item B, which is a public hearing relative to the following rezoning request denied by the planning board. The request was made by Anthony Ray Richardson to rezone plus or minus 7.84 acres at 7137 Hunter Hill Road from R6 CD to O12. The request was denied by the planning board on the basis that the Land Development Code does not list Hunter Hill as one of the corridors intended for O2 mixed-use development, and the proposed rezoning of the subject site will have a density of use impact on the area and does not comply with the Together Tomorrow Tier 1 Smart Growth Comprehensive Plan. At this point, I would like to ask any members of staff, Mr. Deaton, if you would just give us an overview of the project and allow us a few questions, and then we'll invite the public to speak.
Of course, Mayor, thanks again. This property was rezoned some years ago, about 1999, to the R6 CD, kind of we mentioned earlier, conditional district. And under that case, there was just some conditions of a 20-foot buffer established or maintained along the eastern boundary, which was carved out of the larger tract at that time. Again, you kind of mentioned the O&I2 Offices and Institutional District is essentially our mixed use, which allows for a wide range of development. And we see that staff recommend denial, planning board recommend denial, see that as a significant zoning intensity for the property. The applicant at the time wanted to develop a business, create a 2,500 square foot facility for plumbing, equipment, and supplies, and all that. But so just taking a look at Hunter Hill, most of that's residential in that stretch. It doesn't meet any of those plans that we have. So staff recommended denial based on some of those criteria, and the planning board followed suit in the same direction.
Are there any questions? Councilman Knight?
Are there any other businesses that stretch the corridor?
In
Hunter Hill Road?
In that immediate stretch, none that we're aware of. Initially, believe the gentleman came in and wanted to maybe potentially do a home occupation, those sort of things, and I think the rezoning was the only option at the time. In the planning board, I think he did mention B1 might be an option to kind of address that, but again, they did not recommend that change at that time.
Was there any opposition at the planning board meeting from citizens?
None that I'm aware of.
Okay. The applicant had asked if this could be postponed until the next council meeting.
That would be to defer that to the council if you.
Right, and I don't know if they're gonna bring additional information or new information. But also, my understanding is a trucking company or someone that has dump trucks that's in close proximity. I don't know if they got rocks and all that kind of stuff next door to this property.
Potentially, something we can look at. But to your question, no opposition at the planning board.
I asked the council we could,
let's do it this way. Let's receive public comment so that we have the public hearing on the record.
Right.
And then I'll look to you to make the motion
Sure.
to propose. How about that?
Sure.
Are there any other members here from the public wishing to speak on this particular matter? And that's the request to rezone plus or minus 7.84 acres at 7130 700 Hill Road. Any additional questions for staff? Hearing none, Councilman Knight, do you want to propose postponement?
So our next council meeting.
So we have a request, a second made by Councilman Daughtridge, was it? Any additional discussion? I'm sorry.
Let's go ahead and close the public hearing.
Okay, I need to close, this public hearing is now closed. I have a motion to postpone this matter until the next meeting. Motion is made by Councilman Knight, seconded by Councilman Daughtridge. Is there a need for additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. All opposed, like sign. The vote will be postponed. That brings us to item number C, which is the public hearing relative to the following rezoning request recommended for approval and found in compliance with the comprehensive plan by the planning board. The request is made by Arpan Macomb to rezone plus or minus 2.07 acres at 634, 640, 646 West Raleigh Boulevard and 601, 707, 719 Walnut Street from R6 MFA and B2 CD to B2. Mr. Deaton, you care to give us an overview of this particular project and item?
Yes, of course. The property there located in Ward 4, probably more familiar with the Armory and that sort of area in that location. There's 3 commercial properties there that were rezoned in 1995 to B2 CD. At the time, they conditioned that to take out uses and only include pawn shop, office supplies, and equipment sales and service. Now the request is to essentially go to B2. A lot more uses will be allowed, but due to the site constraints, off-street parking requirements, and others, staff felt this was a decent proposal. Staff recommended approval of this, and so did the planning board.
Any questions for staff on this matter? Okay, this time I'd like to invite anybody from the public, if they have a comment as it relates to this proposed project, please come forward. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Angela Smith-Jones, and I currently have 2 properties, 615 West Raleigh Boulevard, 625 West Raleigh Boulevard. So my concern is if that commercial comes into that area, what it's gonna do for my residents right across the street. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Deaton, you care to speak to that a little bit? As I understand the proposal, is that this is really more of a rezoning issue, but I may be wrong.
Right. It would, of course, open up some of the uses that would be allowed in the B2. Our Raleigh Road, Raleigh Street corridor plan calls essentially for this area to be mixed use, a mixed use node. There is a commercial property across the way. We do understand those concerns and believe that most of those can be mitigated by the site limitations on site.
Any questions from anybody on council?
Mayor.
Yes, sir. Councilman T.J. Walker.
Do we have an extra agenda packet for the young lady to see some of those usages?
Let's see. business.
I think that might help some of the clarity. She can look at some of the
Right.
usages.
I don't have one. Do you?
I'll just,
Or if we can read them.
I can
Just read them, if you don't mind reading them.
Would that,
Maybe I
do you
can
think that'll help,
summarize.
ma'am? Okay.
yeah. So the B2 essentially, and what's there now, major retail and service activities. B2 allows for barber shops, automobile sales, convenience stores, et cetera. It's kind of, it is a wide range. We could supply that entire list as well if you're anywhat hesitant.
Yes, sir, Councilman Walker.
Yeah, just for the clarity of the constituent, I think what it does is it provides that shopping center and small businesses opportunity to have more small businesses within some of those available spaces. So some of the spaces, because of how it's zoned now, some of the businesses that are small businesses aren't able to operate in the current zoning. So rezoning will help it be able to be more suitable for other small businesses.
Would you like to speak again, please?
So if you're gonna put small businesses there, right there at the corner of Walnut, and it's like a four-way, I propose a light right there, because trying to get out of my driveway at 6:15 to get onto Raleigh, West Raleigh Boulevard, I mean, it's almost like a speedway through there. You gotta take your chances. So I propose right there at the Armory, just putting a stoplight right there, because it's already bad trying to get. I park on Peter Street a lot just because you can't get, just trying to get out of my driveway onto West Raleigh Boulevard is not good.
Okay.
Yeah, engineering could look at that.
Someone here from engineering?
I have a question.
Yes. You want to speak?
So we're looking at changing, we're talking about the old Walnut Shopping
So
Center.
that's exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about changing the zoning, as I understand it, to something that just allows for a broader use of the property for businesses.
Well, currently, right now, it's, it has the barber shop, the furniture. What else could go there?
Mr. Deaton?
I mean, what else?
Yeah, what are we worried about is what you're asking.
Right, yeah, I'm just trying to figure out.
In our
what-
packet on page 89, in the PDF, it lists all those.
But what my question is, what is this opens up to? Because it seems like, I don't know what other business can go in there that's not already. Trying to do, that's what I'm asking, other than change the zoning from.
If you don't mind, allow me for the record, I'm gonna read out the land uses that will be newly permitted by virtue of this rezoning. It'll take a little while, but I think for clarity, it's appropriate. Adult daycare center in non-residential district, adult daycare center and institutional structure, adult daycare home occupation, adult establishment, assembly, armory, assembly hall, coliseum, movie theater, stadium, auction sales excluding livestock auctioning, automobile repair and or body work excluding commercial wrecking, dismantling, or storage of junk vehicle, automotive sales, new and used, automobile truck and trailer rental, automobile vehicle wash, bakery production and wholesale sales, bed and breakfast, boats and accessories, retail sales and service, bus station activities, childcare home occupation, childcare structure in an institutional structure, church religious institution, contractor excluding outside storage of equipment or supplies, convenience store, dwelling to live or work, dwelling multifamily, dwelling multi-story high density central city area and adaptive for use of historic properties, dwelling upper story, fabrication, light manufacturing, farmers market, fire station operations, flea market, funeral home, government operation, health club, gym, spa, home occupation, kennel operations, lodge like fraternal organizations, manufactured home sales, monument sales, motel, hotel, or motor court operations, newspaper publishing, nightclub, bar and tavern, nursery operations, retail and wholesale, open passive space, recreation or amusement enterprise, racket facilities, restaurant, retailing or servicing 50,000 or less gross square feet per unit, with operations conducted and merchandise displayed inside and or outside a building and not otherwise listed herein. Retailing or servicing with operations conducted and merchandise displayed inside and or outside a building and not otherwise herein listed. School, elementary, junior high, and high school. Storage outside, storage warehouse, tobacco sales warehouse, wireless communication tower 100 feet or greater in height, and wireless communication tower of less than 100 feet in height. Those are the additions. So is there any other questions and or discussion on the matter? Councilman Knight?
It's board, but the person petitioning us to change the zoning is the person that currently owns it, correct?
That's correct.
Well, the person that currently owns it, the way they're keeping it now, I mean, in the past, there's been a lot of junk out there in the parking lot, furniture and trash. I'm just gonna be straight up with you. And we've complained, and the community code has gone by and had them to clean that establishment up. So I don't know if they're gonna do better or if they're gonna change the zoning and make sure their tenants do better. But they got to do better, because that's the main corridor. And I think I've seen some improvement. So could you speak to that, Councilmember Walker? Because I don't want to be trying to stop something that you're supporting.
Most definitely.
But yet still answer
Yes, Councilman.
the citizen question.
You have the floor.
Yeah, I've seen tremendous improvement since ownership has changed, and anyone else. Yeah, since ownership has changed, and that's been over the last 6 months or so, maybe a little longer. But it's looking a lot cleaner and neater. There's a lot of progress that can take place, and I believe it will take place. But talking to the new owner, they seem very, very excited about the actual ownership of the property and how they're looking to maintain it and keep it upkept.
Have you had meetings with your constituents?
Meeting with constituents about what?
The zoning change.
I haven't had any. I haven't received any opposition to it, other than young lady today. That's the first time I've heard a conversation. We have our ward meetings every month, and
so it
this
was
is my
brought up in the
first.
ward meeting. Okay.
Yeah, not about opposition. It's the first I've heard about opposition tonight.
No, I'm just.
Okay.
What I'm trying to find out, have this been discussed in any of the community meetings about the rezoning and what potential other new businesses can go into the Walnut Shopping Center?
I didn't go to any of the planning board meetings, and it hasn't been in our community.
In your community meetings.
Yeah, that hasn't been any conversation in our community meetings about that. People have just been pleased with the upkeep of the property as it's been. There has been conversation about individuals that cannot, open businesses there, and they're looking to have this rezoning done so they can do so.
Well, I'm just.
All right. Any additional questions? Do you have additional questions to the matter? Councilman Joyner?
Did I hear in the process that they could open bars or taverns or something, nightclubs?
That was one of the new items, correct, as I read it.
How would the residents feel about bars, nightclub, and tavern being open?
Councilman Daughtridge, yeah.
Can we call
We've
for the
got some
vote?
rules and regulations regarding bars and where they can, there's a church nearby that I think you can't be within 500 feet from a church, am I correct?
I think that's also true of adult establishments as well.
I'm looking down to Mr. Manager or the attorney or even to Mr. Deaton, who might know.
I think alcoholic beverage control does have some limits as to how close it can go to a church. That's handled by the state, not the city.
But it depends on what side you're putting it on. I'm not against business, and it's your ward, Councilman Walker, so I defer to you. but we all are tied to Little Raleigh, just as I am to South Rocky Mount and any other historic African-American community. And I just want to make sure that if everybody's okay with it, I'm okay with it.
I think we need to have, as we look to approve this, have, as we heard from the young lady that came tonight, have staff talk about those engineering options we can look at for traffic lighting.
So then, I'm looking for a motion to adopt the ordinance.
So
I
moved.
believe with the caveat that, well, maybe not the caveat, and separately, an instruction or request of staff to look at the engineering. So I have a motion to accept the ordinance. I have a second from Councilman Joyner. Is there a need for further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. All right, the ordinance has now been adopted. Item D is another public hearing. It's relative to the following land development code amendments recommended for approval and found in compliance with the comprehensive plan by the planning board. It's to amend the land development code to expand the provisions for required individual mailed service, or mailed notice. Requested actions, we receive public comment and then to adopt the ordinance. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to you, Mr. Deaton, if you just kind of give us a brief overview.
Yes, of course. This is in addition to the neighborhood meeting text amendment that we brought forward to you in July. This one will extend our mailed notice after researching comparable communities in the area. Most of them do require, besides abutting property owners, they also add an additional 100 feet. We're also going to request that mailed notice goes to impacted neighborhood associations and homeowners associations that opt into receive notice, and additional property owners or tenants at the direction of the department based on the use. So, for example, abutting property owners may want to cross over the street. Maybe it's a larger tract, Thomas Betts Parkway 301, or go across a natural feature to include more notification. So this will be in addition to the required neighborhood meetings for specific types of requests in the future.
Any questions? Yes, sir, Councilman Daughtridge.
I'm certainly in favor of broadening this, and I don't understand why we're not broadening it more, why we're limiting it to 100 feet. Because we're conducting the public business, and the public should have a say with what goes on within their neighborhoods and within the surrounding area. And within 100 feet, I don't think that's. I think we can expand that, especially with technology today. We've got GIS. The police department and the fire department use Atlas One that people can sign up for. You got environmental services where you can put in your address and it tells you what your service is. And then I happened to go, when I was served on the planning board, I actually was the one that provided the larger signs to the city of Rocky Mount because the ones we had were frankly too small. So in the city of Raleigh, they even have very large signs that they put on property for various things, from just about everything. And it has a QR code. It's clear where you can go to on the city's website to find more information. You can even sign up on the city website to be notified, this is in Raleigh, about everything from annexation to certificate of appropriateness. And if you so choose, you can sign up for that and receive an email. I don't know why we're limiting this. I think in the age of technology, we should just expand it. And we come into situations like this where we're asking questions if people are aware of them, and I just don't understand why we're limiting this. I think we should painfully go through and make it as broad as we possibly can. And with technology, we have it available to us. I would like to see it broadened.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Questions? Is there any member of the public here to speak on this matter? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Looking for a motion to adopt the ordinance amending the land development code and map. I'm sorry,
Mr. Mayor, I would like to table this and for staff to go back and look at broadening this even further and come back before us at the next meeting.
Okay, matter's been tabled. Is there, all in favor, aye? Tabled by Daughtridge, second by Joyner. Is there a need for discussion?
No discussion.
No discussion needed, it's just been tabled, right? Okay, that brings us to item number 10. That's a consideration of renewal of debris management and removal services contract with Crowder Gulf for a 1-year period. Contract activation typically associated with disaster declaration and FEMA reimbursement. It's a cost driven by event, and Crowder Gulf is requesting a price increase of 5% as stated in the contract. Request is that we approve this contract and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the same on behalf of the city. Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion provided that we increase the limits for liability insurance to $5 million, and the city's made aware of any hydraulic or fuel spills.
All right.
We have contacted the company to see if they would be willing to increase the general liability insurance coverage, and they've indicated that they would. And they've also indicated that they would agree to the addition of language that would say that the contractor agrees to notify the city of any fuel spills or hydraulic line failures from any of the contractor's equipment that result in fuel or hydraulic fluid coming in contact with the ground. They've agreed to those changes.
So I have a motion on the floor to approve the contract, authorize the mayor with a $5 million increase in liability and the requirement notice of hydraulic and fuel spills. Is that a second from you, Councilman Joyner? So I have a motion from Councilman Daughtridge, second by Joyner. Is there a need for discussion? Councilman Harris.
Just for background information, have we used this company over the last 3 years? And if so, how was their performance?
Go ahead, Ken. I haven't paid attention the last 3 years.
Yes, sir. Good evening. The last time that we activated this service was in 2010 with Hurricane Irene. It was the same contractor, Crowder Gulf. They did an excellent job in removing the debris that occurred from that. We have not had to execute. We did not have to execute this in 2017 with Hurricane Matthew. This is a standard contract that we do so that we are pre-prepared. It not only ensures that we're able to receive this service when it's needed, it also helps in terms of being able to facilitate the public assistance funding that we receive from FEMA that helps cover the cost, the reimbursement costs of this. I believe in the last disaster in Hurricane Irene, the cost for this ran over $3 million for debris removal at that time. Obviously, the cost would go up for a similar amount. There's a lot of elements to it, but Crowder Gulf does an excellent job in providing this service.
I have a question.
Yes, sir. Councilman Knight.
Is MWBE requirement in this contract?
I do not believe that it's required. Typically, they bring their own crews in. It's all pre-staged.
Because what happened the last time when we had a hurricane, some of the local contractors was trying to get part of the work, and one gentleman had gone out and bought a dump truck, and they came to the city, they sent him out, so you need tail lights, they got the tail lights, they told him he needed this, needed that. Done all of that, and then they told him that he still could not get any of the contracts. And we were looking to put local people to remove some of this debris out of our communities. And so is there a way, I'm asking the purchasing, that this could be a part of this contract?
We don't have anybody.
Well,
we don't have anybody here from purchasing tonight, but we can certainly talk to them, and we can certainly work to figure out if something can be done.
Before we approve, I asked the council, can we come back and make that one of the criterias in approving the contract?
Well, Councilman Knight, I have a motion and a second, and I hear you.
I asked if they could amend the motion, please.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir. Councilman Daughtridge.
In addition to, I'm willing to amend my motion instead of, but adding that we request that the Crowder group add MWBE piece in there, I think is appropriate.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the new motion just to be clear, is that we approve this contract, and if they add a $5 million additional liability component and a requirement that they provide notice in the case of a hydraulic line and or fuel spill, and that there be an MWBE component to the contract. I have a motion from Councilman Daughtridge. Is that second from you, Councilman Joyner, still? All right. Is there a need for additional discussion on the matter? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Item carries. It brings us to item 11 on the agenda, which is consideration of the amendment annexation ordinance 2021-95, annexation number 325, Thomas A. Betts Parkway and Peel Road, property identification number 3842009221115. It's a correction of discrepancy discovered regarding a residential parcel on the east side of Peel Road. Request is that we approve the amendment to the annexation ordinance of 0-2021-95. Is there a motion? Motion made by Councilman Daughtridge, seconded by Joyner. Is there a need for discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Item carries. Item number 12 is consideration of ordinance amending Chapter 2 of the Code of the City of Rocky Mount entitled Administration. Article 2 entitled City Council, Section 2-29, Rules of Order. A, Rule 6, adding a new section, consideration of additions or deletions to the agenda. And B, adding Rule 16, Rules of Procedures for Remote Meetings. The request is, I'm looking for a motion to adopt the ordinance.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Joyner, seconded by Councilman Harris. Is there a need for discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 13 is consideration of the following transit request. A grant agreement with the Federal Transit Administration for American Rescue Plan Act funds for rural transit. It's a $580,684 with no local match required. The project ordinance of rural operations would be approximately $400,000, and the rural capital is $180,684. The request is that we approve the agreement and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the same on behalf of the city and to adopt the ordinance. Is there a motion? That's a lot of you. Okay, so I think it was Councilman T.J. Walker. Second sounded like Councilman Joyner. Is there a need for discussion?
I plan to vote, but I want to make a comment after.
Yes, sir. Okay. You want to be recognized now? Or? All right. All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, like sign. I'll recognize you, Councilman Knight.
In that same vein, we're talking about transportation. I was approached by a citizen to see if we could offer free transportation on our city transit or nets for veterans. And so I just asked the city manager if you could look into that with our Mr. Todd and see if that's possible. Okay, thank you.
Okay, item number 14 is consideration of housing incentive grant program agreement with Seniors Matter LLC, also known as Grandma's House LLC. $150,000 for rehabilitation of the 9-unit residential apartment complex at 719 through 727 Branch Street. Request is that we approve the agreement and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the same on behalf of the city. Is there a motion? Motion made by Councilman Joyner. Is that a second by you, Councilman Knight? Is there a need for discussion?
I have a comment.
Yes, sir, Councilman.
It was alluded that this young man who came up and put in a lot of hard work and money, that something was done illegal. And I know that staff must vet this and make sure that all guidelines were followed. And so I just want to dispel that. A lot of times, you know, we say things about people and it discourages people. But I want to encourage as many young people as they possibly can who want to come in and help us transform our communities to a better place and improve the quality of life. I just want to go on the record because it was insinuated or made reference or inference to this young man was doing something illegal.
Thank you, Councilman Knight. Anybody else? Councilman Joyner?
Yes, I want to say that this piece of property had been abandoned. It was definitely was used for drug infested. It was used for dog fights. We have seniors that stay in proximity to this property that did not feel safe. While we were trying to secure this property, portion of this property was set afire, and Pastor Garnter down from this property struggled to try to keep this area clean. And since this property has been rehabbed, we have about 5 other pieces of properties in this area now where have been bought and rehabbed. And this weekend there's a great festival there and cleanup of this whole area. And as the chief has said, those properties that were used for slum landlord and that this community had no right and privilege of the income from this area now have that opportunity. And I'm thanking the council and our city manager for encouraging us to do a better job with this, but a great job has been done.
Thank you. Is there additional comment or question? Councilman Daltrich.
Mr. Mayor, again, this is a housing incentive grant. Again, I take issue with the subcommittee. I take issue with there's been no announcement of meetings, there's been no meeting minutes, there's no policies and procedures. I have nothing against the projects that are being presented to us. I have take issue with everything that I just said. So I'm going on record yet again, because yet again, we have no policies and procedures, no meeting minutes, no nothing. And I think the young lady that spoke earlier was in reference to maybe within our packet, it stated some things were going to be met. And if that's the case, I think she has a concern that possibly they've already been done, and it could potentially bring something into question. So I don't think, I didn't hear the person questioning the applicant at all, but I applaud the applicant for doing and investing in Rocky Mount like any other developer, and appreciate it. My whole issue is around these housing incentive grants. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to call the question. I think we've had plenty of discussion on the matter. I've got a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 15 is consideration of the following bids: firefighting equipment and rescue tools award to municipal emergency services at a total cost of $95,078.06, based on a bid awarded by the Sourcewell Group Purchasing Program, contract number 040220MES, and 4 Pac-Mac loaders mounted on 2023 Freightliner cab chassis, award to Carolina Environmental Systems, Inc. at a total cost of $776,136 via the North Carolina Sheriff's Association Group Purchasing Program, bid number 22-06-0426R. Request is that we award the bids as recommended, and that we authorize purchasing division to issue a PO and execute bid documents in accordance with the council's award. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Councilman Daltrich, seconded by Councilman Joyner. Is there a need for discussion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Just a
Councilman Harris.
comment. In the packet, I noticed that 2 of these trucks will be available by end of October, perhaps. That would be
Before
a
then.
wonderful day. Let's get some pictures in the paper.
Very well. So noted. Thank you. Is there any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 16 is consideration of submission of a Golden Leaf site grant application to prep the Peel Road Certified Industrial Smart Site in the amount of $1.5 million. Requested action is we authorize staff to submit the grant request and authorize the city manager and city clerk to execute required documentation and certifications, including grant application and subsequent grant agreement. Is there a motion? Motion made by Councilman Joyner. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Harris. Is there a need for discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Item 17 are appointments. Does anybody have any names to bring before the council tonight?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Daughtridge, and then I'll recognize you, Councilman Joyner. Sorry.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to nominate you, our mayor, to the Transportation Advisory Committee.
Councilman Joyner?
To have a street closing on Pender Street on Saturday.
Okay, can we handle that as the next agenda item? We're on appointments at the moment. I'm gonna ask you to repeat that if you don't mind. Is there anybody else to be brought forward for nomination for one of the committees? I have me being recommended for the Transportation Advisory Committee. Is there a second?
Second.
Second made by Councilman Harris. Is there a need for discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Thank you for your confidence, gentlemen. I'll bring us to item 17A, we'll call it. And I'm gonna ask you, Councilman Joyner, if you would repeat that
Yes,
motion.
closing of Pender Street, 800, 900 block from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock on Saturday.
Is there a second? Second by Councilman T.J. Walker. Is there a need for discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. That brings us to item 18, which is our closed session. So I need a motion to go into closed session.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Daughtridge, seconded by Joyner. All in favor, please say aye.
That's for property acquisition and economic development.
Property acquisition, economic development.
Thank you,
So what we said at the beginning of the meeting, you gotta repeat it. Does that make you feel better, or is that, what's the, any terms?
Taking no chance. Got to be in the motion.
What's that? Needs to be in the motion? Okay.